Wednesday, July 3rd edition of PFT PM. There isn't a whole lot going on today, but there's no way I'm doing it tomorrow. 24 hours or so from now, I'll be under the influence of multiple different intoxicants at a minimum. Might actually make for a better PFT PM, but we won't find out. Maybe Friday. Maybe I'll still be hungover. Maybe I'll still be drunk. We'll find out come Friday. For now, some of the things going on. And I tried earlier today to come up with a full list of all the veterans who might stay away from training camp. Might. The eventual list had 14 names, and it just came from my own vague recollection of the names of the players with contracts who are looking for new deals, haven't gotten new deals. Maybe they were at mandatory minicamp. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they skipped some of the offseason program. Maybe they didn't. Training camp is a different dynamic altogether. That's when you send the clearest possible message. I think back to Ezekiel Elliott 5 years ago, showed up for off-season program, showed up for mandatory minicamp, then all of a sudden wasn't there for training camp. That is when it's time for the team to take the situation seriously. A hold-in is still possible. That's a fairly new dynamic where the guy shows up, negotiations on a contract continue, and the player doesn't practice but attends meetings, and the team knows where he is. The team knows he's under the watchful eye of the coaching staff and everything's fine and we know what kind of shape he's in. He's just not out there on the practice field. The problem with that, though, is it ends at some point. At some point, there's a logical spot where the team's like, hey, we haven't worked out a deal. It's time to go. Time to go. Week one's coming up. That happened with Roquan Smith and the Bears a couple of years ago. So I'm a proponent. If you're going to not practice or play, just don't show up. I know that there's fines involved. For guys under their rookie contracts, though, those fines can be excused, and they undoubtedly will be. And most of these guys that are on this list are on their rookie contracts. Not all of them, though. You might be surprised by Matthew Stafford's name on there. I don't know what he's going to do, but I do know this. He wants a new contract. He wants guarantees beyond this year. He should want more money after seeing what Jared Goff got, the guy that the Rams gave up a first-round pick on top of the 1 and a 3. Remember, 1 and a 3 to get Stafford, another first-round pick added to the package to get the Goff contract off the Rams' books. Now, this guy's making $53 million a year. Why shouldn't Matthew Stafford look at that and say, I'm getting 40, something's wrong with this picture? So I wouldn't be shocked if any of the 14 guys that I listed ultimately decides to stay away, because that's the ultimate way to get a team's attention, to increase the urgency, especially if it's a quarterback. Rarely do you see anything other than a rookie quarterback stay away from training camp. Veteran quarterbacks rarely do, especially when they're under contract. I could see Stafford. I could see Tua Tagovailoa doing it as well. As I've said before, that's the only way he's going to get what he wants. The Dolphins are going to offer him something significantly more than what he has, but also significantly less than what he wants. And the only way he's going to get what he wants is to stay away. Between him, Tyreek Hill, talked about him yesterday. I remember that. I don't remember much what I did yesterday, but I do remember talking about Tyreek Hill yesterday. Some of the other guys, Amari Cooper, Jamar Chase. So we'll see how it goes. It's coming, though. It's coming. We are getting closer and closer to the opening of camp. Rookies reporting, veterans showing up. Guys will be possibly staying away. I've got 14 that I'm watching. It probably means I'm missing one or two. That was my big concern. The more names I added to the list, the more convinced I was it's probably going to be somebody who holds out who's not on this list. So maybe I'll have to add to it. If you can think of anyone, drop a tweet. I could say, well, you know how to reach me at email, Florio@profootballtalk.com. We don't have the comments anymore. People still complain about that once in a while, but man, all things considered, that had become such a cesspool, even considering what a cesspool X is. The comments section was a complete and total cesspool, and I think it was right around a year ago that we said, see you later to the comments. Also, potential holdouts, rookies. I mentioned that we see that from time to time with rookie quarterbacks, other first-round picks. There isn't much to negotiate when it's time to work out rookie deals. So since 2011, when the current CBA model was put in place with the rookie wage scale that dramatically reduced what the guys at the top make, there really isn't anything to fight over, especially in round one, because we're now at the point in round one where everybody gets a fully guaranteed 4-year contract. I always point that out. Whenever someone says, oh, the NFL doesn't have fully guaranteed contracts, well, they have some. There's at least 32 guys every year who get one, get a 4-year fully guaranteed contract. First round picks do. So with the full amount guaranteed, there's really only 3 things that can prevent a deal from getting done. One, cash flow of the signing bonus. When are they paying the amounts that are due and owing based upon putting the name on the dotted line? Do you get it all when you sign? Do you get half of it when you sign? Do you have to wait a year for the rest? Is it 90 days? Is it 60 days? Is it 15 days? Whatever. That's one way to negotiate. And obviously the player wants the money now, and the team would like to hold it as long as possible, make some money off of it, have it available for other things, whatever the case may be. That's one area where you can have something that would result in a fair back and forth over when a contract gets done. What can void a contract, what a player does that triggers the void of the guarantee, not the contract, but the guarantee. That was why Roquan Smith held out with the Bears a couple of years ago. It's possible that something like that could derail a negotiation because teams tend to want to have a broader range of things that could potentially void guarantees. Not because the team is looking for reasons to get out, but I think the team is hedging against the possibility the guy doesn't work out. Because even though when you watch the draft, for every guy taken, oh, he's going to be great and here's why. Oh, he's going to be great and here's why. Oh, he's going to be great and here's why. What happens? Half of the guys end up not being great. So if they do something that allows you to void the guarantees, you can avoid the full 4-year responsibility for roughly half of the guys who don't work out. That leads to the third thing that can result in negotiation and haggling and potential holdout: the offset language. Now, teams like the Jaguars and I think the Rams, they are fine to say, we'll take out the offset language. We owe you X dollars over the next 4 years, fully guaranteed. If it doesn't work out and we cut you, if you go somewhere else, we don't get credit for whatever you make. Minimum salary with another team, whatever it may be. You double dip. That's what the player would like to do. The teams like to get some credit. I never like that because I don't like preparing, just like the whole thing about avoiding guarantees. I don't like preparing for worst case scenarios. I don't like assuming that my draft pick is going to go sideways. I'm willing to bet on being right. And if I'm wrong, I got bigger problems on whether or not I'm going to pay the guy 4 years fully guaranteed. We stand behind our picks. We're not going to nickel and dime our players. We're not going to try to set up an escape hatch in the event that our pick was wrong. We believe in our pick. We pay the money and we move on. I think that's the better approach. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Jaguars and the Rams do what they do. Oh, I'm getting a phone call here. I got to return this call after I'm done. And I try to, some days what I do, so I don't go on and on for a full hour, I try to arrange the starting time so I know I have a hard out. And in about 27 minutes, I've got my weekly radio spot in Pittsburgh on 93.7 The Fan. So after that, I got an interesting phone call I got to return, and there may be an update coming at PFT on the thing that I need to be talking about. I've been talking a lot about the Sunday ticket verdict and where it goes from here. One of the things that I pointed out today, and I've been trying to really figure out why more people in the media haven't been focusing on this. 2 ways. One, there weren't a lot of people covering the case, to the point where Peter King texted me after the case was a couple of weeks old, you should have someone covering the case in LA. Well, the natural person to cover the case would have been me, and I really didn't want to pack up and go to LA for a couple of weeks. Those of you who have been around PFT for a while and remember when the Super Bowl was in LA, I kind of vowed to never go back. I was so anxious to leave. I almost left my luggage at the hotel. I called my wife and I said, I really don't have anything here that can't be replaced. I'm just going to leave all my shit and just come home. I'll bring my laptop. I just want to get the hell out of here. And it really wasn't, I say this and maybe it was, it really wasn't a slap at LA. I'd been there before. It was just the first time I'd gone anywhere since the pandemic. And it was just a long, exhausting week. Nothing against LA per se, but I really didn't want to go back to cover this trial. I just wish that there would have been more robust coverage by the media outlets that were assessing their resources and making decisions about where reporters would go. And even since the verdict landed last week, I don't know whether it's, I want to be diplomatic here. I don't know whether it's complacency. I don't know whether it's failure to understand what's going on. I don't know whether it's kowtowing to Big Shield, not wanting to upset the NFL. I just feel like not enough media outlets have been covering what this verdict means, what its ramifications could be, and fundamentally, what the NFL did. 30 years of rigging the price of Sunday Ticket so that those who really wanted to see the out-of-market games badly enough would have to pay an inflated premium, and those who would have very much liked to have bought the package didn't buy the package. There's a whole subset of victims here that have no standing because they didn't buy it. I don't know, and I don't believe there's any avenue under the law for airing a grievance when you're someone who didn't buy something you would have bought and would have very much enjoyed for 30 years, but you didn't buy it because the NFL always put it at a price where it wasn't responsible for you to find a line item in the family budget to get it. That's a category of victims that is voiceless in all of this. And those are the folks that I'm really kind of trying to highlight that they got screwed here. Didn't cost them a penny. It did cost them the experience of watching the games they want to watch. They fall into that target audience that all those commercials are directed at. You're a Saints fan in Pittsburgh. You're a Packers fan in Topeka. You're a Rams fan in New York City. Whatever. Displaced fan that loves the sport and wants to watch the games played by his or her favorite team. We're going to make it so expensive that you're going to have to unreasonably overpay for the privilege of watching the games, or you're just going to say, I just can't afford it. Can't do it. It's not the prudent thing for me and my family to do. So the class action covers the people who paid for it. There is a group out there that got screwed by the NFL because they didn't buy it, because they couldn't buy it, because they wanted to buy it. And if it was cheaper, they would have bought it. But this ultimately was all about preserving the multi-billion-dollar goose in the form of the CBS and Fox contracts for over-the-air, free TV, broadcast of the game. So anyway, I'm the only one. If there's somebody else who's calling this exactly as they see it and exactly as it is, an exposure of corruption by the NFL, abuse of the consumers, taking more money than they should have from some fans, and also setting the price so high that it excluded other fans who would have taken advantage of that product, of that Sunday Ticket package if it was priced reasonably. Remember, ESPN at one point wanted to do $70 for the full season. Why wouldn't somebody just make a single team option available? That's how they market the damn thing. But this is all about striking what the jury in LA decided was an anti-competitive balance between getting big money for Sunday Ticket and not jeopardizing the big money from CBS and Fox, which wanted the price to be high enough so that fans would say, well, I'd really like to watch my Packers, but I'll just watch the Steelers game on the local CBS or Fox affiliate. I'll just watch the Steelers because that's what's in the market where I live. And I can't move back to Green Bay right now. So I just won't watch the Packers. Anyway, I'm hoping that as this thing lingers, it's summertime, it's kind of slow. I hope some smart people out there, people smarter than me, people who are more persuasive in their use of words than me, who can really pick up the megaphone and shout into it, will let the world know that the NFL got caught with the hand in a cookie jar here. And that hand in a cookie jar was, I'm not going to show the middle finger. I don't want them to have to blur this, but basically the hand was in the form of a middle finger to the consumers deep in the cookie jar. And the NFL didn't care. The NFL didn't care. Football is family. Football is family. They say football is family because football is business, and it's good for business to say football is family. All right. Let's answer some questions. Let's see what we got here on this Wednesday edition of PFT PM, one day before the 4th of July. I used the Silvio Dante gif where he's imitating Michael Corleone in Godfather 3. I've watched most of the little Steven Van Zandt documentary on Max. It's very music nerdy at first. Like, it's a lot of stuff that if you're not heavily invested in and knowledgeable of the music scene in the 60s and 70s, you might just kind of glaze over a little bit. But it's still worth your time because it's an amazing evolution of a guy who had incredible music writing ability, arrangement senses, how to layer and showcase different instruments when it's time to take the various sounds and turn them into something that would be pressed on vinyl. The work that he did for 10th Avenue Freeze Out, for example, saved that song for Bruce Springsteen. He never really had the charisma to be a frontman. He was a great number two in the E Street Band, but he could never really make it work the way that he needed to as the guy in charge. So anyway, he made the most out of what he had. Then he became very active politically with the Sun City. If you're not aware of what he did and what his role was in, I'm trying to multitask here, by the way. My wife is calling me and I want to make sure everything's fine because, I don't think she knows I'm down here. Anyway, what he did by putting together a very diverse and broad group of artists to make the Sun City record and how that kind of got the ball rolling to bring down apartheid and his role. I didn't realize, or I had forgotten, that Congress tried to impose massive sanctions on South Africa to pressure it to end apartheid. President Reagan vetoed the bill. And then they mobilized an effort to override the veto in the Senate by a vote of 78-21 with the direct involvement of little Steven Van Zandt. Basically said to President Reagan, sorry, man. Sorry, Gramps. We're going to sanction South Africa. And not long after that, Mandela was freed, and that was it for apartheid. So an amazing career. And then he's just kind of exiled from the music industry a few years later. And then he resurfaces as one of the iconic roles on one of the great TV shows of all time, as Silvio Dante in The Sopranos. It really is an amazing career. Anyway, that wasn't any question. That was just explaining why I went with that gif. He also has a great song that he wrote that I had never heard before. It's called I Am a Patriot. And Jackson Browne sings it. Eddie Vedder sings it. If you look on YouTube, you'll find a bunch of other people other than Little Steven singing it. And actually, his version of it isn't that great compared to some of the others. But it's a hell of a song. It's a great song to listen to and reflect on the lyrics for the 4th of July. Okay, here we go. PFT PM policy. Is there any logical reason you can think of or that you've heard that explains how horrible the Cowboys are with star player contracts? Anything at all to explain this ineptitude? I don't know. I said this back early in the offseason when we realized that Jerry Jones said they're all in. They're really not all in. The reason they're not all in is their hands are tied by the Dak Prescott contract. They got to figure out CeeDee Lamb. They got to figure out Michael Parsons. And what I said on PFT Live, and I still believe this to this day, the Cowboys, when it comes to dealing with their great young players, are cheap, short-sighted, and not as smart as they think they are. They do a great job of finding and developing young talent, but they make bad decisions about when and how to pay them on both fronts. They franchise tag Tony Pollard and give him over $10 million when they shouldn't have done that, coming off of a broken ankle. Nobody's going to take him and pay him $10 million plus last year. Michael Gallup, they gave him a ridiculous contract after he tore his ACL. So they make bad decisions both ways, and now they're in a mess. They waited too long the first time around with Dak Prescott. Now they're waiting too long with CeeDee Lamb. I think there's a chance Michael Parsons says, I'm not showing up. I know he said he's willing to wait his turn. I just don't think he should. I think he should hold out and get what he deserves. I don't know what it is. I really don't. But it has kept the Cowboys from being as good as they can be, especially this year. Their mishandling of these great young player contracts. I know Dak Prescott isn't young in the grand scheme of things, but as quarterbacks go, he's still got a lot of time left. And they bungled his deal. They bungled CeeDee Lamb so far, and they potentially will bungle Michael Parsons. JC Carm, why didn't the Packers pick up Jordan Love's fifth-year option? Would they have been in the same situation now if they had? Well, right now he'd be entering that fifth-year option. Based upon how he played last year, he probably would be wanting a new deal like Tua Tagovailoa does. So it wouldn't have been a significant number because he didn't play much the first 3 years. I can't remember what the number was. I think it was somewhere around 20, 18 to 20. I can't remember, but it wasn't a huge number because it's now based upon accomplishments, not based upon where you're drafted. When they use that fifth-year option, remember, it's only available for first-round picks. I wrote something at one point about how, maybe he should have held firm last year and said to the Packers, pick up my option or don't, but I'm not doing a deal that makes it easier for you, that gives you a middle ground. Pick up my option or don't. My understanding is they wouldn't have picked up his option. If he didn't agree to that deal, they wouldn't have picked up his option. So last year would have been his contract year. And think of it this way. Halfway through that year, what would they have done if they knew they had no one under contract for next year at quarterback and Jordan Love was not good last year? They stuck with him in part because I believe they knew they had made a 2-year commitment. So they weren't going to start thinking about going in a different direction next year. They were patient, and that patience paid off because the second half of the season, he was incredible. Ultimately to the point where it's a given that they want this guy to continue. And there's a belief that they're going to be the first team probably ever to go great quarterback to great quarterback to great quarterback, from Favre to Rodgers to now Love. And I think that the deal that was done last year ensured enough patience for him to finally figure it out last year, for things to finally slow down. And this is I think, prime example of the dynamic that I believe exists in the NFL. Guys don't get enough chances to become the best they can be. They get thrown out, and then they don't get a chance anywhere else to develop. You have to play. You have to develop. It becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. You go out and play, and you play well. And if you don't get a chance to play well, you never become the guy that you could have been. And you become the guy that you are because you get to play and you keep playing and you get better and you get better, and people view you as a great quarterback. That buys you the benefit of the doubt, and it gives you more time to develop as a great quarterback. So think of how many guys who, after 2 or 3 years, now you're out. And maybe if you hadn't been drafted by, I don't know, I'll say the Jets. Apparently I hate the Jets. There are now media outlets that got nothing better to do than write a whole story titled, "Why Does Mike Florio Hate the Jets?" I shit you not. I almost retweeted it, but I don't want to give the outlet in question any free publicity because, frankly, I didn't even know the outlet existed until a couple of months ago. I thought it was like an outlet that made preview magazines that were on the shelf at the grocery store, and that was it. But yeah, I hate the Jets. It just, anybody that thinks that is ignorant, and I don't mind it from fans. The problem is you have this industry now of fan turned blogger who's got nothing better to write about, and they write like fans do with no critical eye, with no real analysis. It's just low-hanging fruit. It's a tweet turned into a 500-word article, ranting and raving about somebody who don't like my team. Oh, he doesn't like my team. Ooh, he said bad things about my quarterback. I mean, it's just a bunch of shit. Anyway, pardon me for that. What else do we have? JC Carm, what do the Giants have to gain by letting people know what their internal processes are? It seems as if it would do more harm than good. Yeah, I've been watching the first episode of the off-season edition of Hard Knocks. I think they should do a Hard Knocks that is focused on the customer that is trying to figure out why the hell I should watch all this stuff. Hard Knocks, the life of a Hard Knocks viewer. I get it preseason. I get it in season. I don't get it off season. I don't get it. And I assume you get to a point where you're numb to the omnipresence of the cameras and the microphones. I mean, if I'm Joe Shane, like, let me eat my, I almost dropped the F-bomb there. I'm trying to be nice today to an extent. Let me eat my damn lunch. Like there are scenes where he's sitting there with it, whatever takeout he got, and he's trying to eat his lunch, and guys talking, and you can tell they've gotten to the point where they're not paying any attention to the reality that the camera is there. And I know, I can't remember when this happened. There have been occasions where they've been filming something in the viewing room at NBC. And once you know that camera and microphone is there, it affects you because anything you say is going to be preserved and potentially used in whatever medium they might use it. So you're thinking before you speak more than you usually would. I mean, it's important to have a filter so you don't just blurt out dumb shit all the time, but it's even more important when there's cameras there. It makes you ask yourself one more time, how dumb is this observation I'm about to make? And I think it also prompts you to come up with some smart observation you otherwise wouldn't have even thought of. So the whole thing, reality TV isn't real because everybody knows that someone is eavesdropping on the conversation. That's not reality. That's a warped, distorted view of reality. So I don't know how much of this is going to compromise the Giants. Remember, the teams always have final say over what makes it to air. Sometimes the teams make bad decisions, like the Browns. I remember this back in it was 17 or 18, the year that they were on Hard Knocks. And there was that awkward meeting where Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley got into this back and forth about whether you rest veterans in training camp. We can't reside within our fears. We need to get these guys ready. Well, we also need to keep them healthy. And I'm driving the bus here. I'm in charge. And it all came off as very dysfunctional. And as evidence of the dysfunction, the Browns actually thought it made Hugh Jackson look good. That made it to air, and people were like, probably shouldn't have made it to air. So I just wonder, will the Giants miscalculate what they think makes them look good, and will it jeopardize them in some way moving forward? And do we really need to have an off-season Hard Knocks? I would submit that we don't need to have any Hard Knocks right now, although I'm kind of interested in this in season with all the teams of one division. I'm interested in how that's going to go. But off season, I don't know. I'll still watch it because it's related to football. It's on TV, and it might help me better understand one of the teams that I pretend to cover. Scotty Ferg, if Tua doesn't work out in Miami after this year, what potential free agent would you like to see run Mike McDaniel's offense next year? Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, dare I say Tom Brady? I don't think Tom Brady is going to be in Miami. And look, it could go poorly enough that Mike McDaniel gets blown out of Miami. I don't know. I don't think he's on the hot seat, but I feel like he's kind of on notice that just, having a great start, petering out down the stretch, and losing in the opening round of the playoffs is not the path to sustainable success for him in Miami. I raised the point with Chris Sims earlier in the offseason. Would you rather have Tua for $50 million a year now or Dak for $60 million a year next year? And that was a tough call for him. Maybe I'd rather have Dak run that offense than Tua. Maybe I'd rather have Kirk Cousins if the Falcons decide to hand the ball and the offense to Michael Penix Jr. after 2024. I think it's going to be Cousins for 2 years. There's a chance it's 1 year. Next year, easy to trade that contract. I know there's a no trade clause, but if Kirk Cousins is looking at being on the bench in Atlanta versus playing somewhere else, he's going to want to play somewhere else. Remember when he was asked the question, would you have signed with the Falcons if you had known they were going to draft Michael Penix with the 8th overall pick? And he said, I don't get into hypotheticals. That's a diplomatic way of saying, hell no, I wouldn't have signed with the Falcons if they told me they were going to use a premium top 10 pick on my replacement. Are you crazy? So if that opportunity arises, I don't know, maybe he'd do it. And that's the conundrum the Dolphins now face. Do they pay Tua and keep him, or do they just say, you know what, we have faith, we'll find a replacement next year? Somebody who can come in and run the Mike McDaniel offense as good or better for less than what Tua wants. That's the question. And that's why so many of these teams, I think, I'll say, well, who are they bidding against? Who are the Lions bidding against when they gave Jared Goff 53? Who are the Jaguars bidding against when they gave Trevor Lawrence 55? Although it's not 55, it's a 7-year deal worth $43.7 million per year, which is a lot more affordable than 55 a year. But, it's the whole new money, old money thing. Regardless, I think teams, and I talked earlier about living in your fears. They live in their fears. And they're like, well, if we lose this guy, what are we going to do? Vikings lost Kirk Cousins. Oh, we got to go with J.J. McCarthy with the 10th overall pick and hope he pans out. We need another plan. We need someone else. I think some teams need to have that conceit that they will find someone and that they'll be able to teach someone to run the offense the way that Mike McDaniel taught Tua how to do it. Dilip Rao, how often does Camp Scuttlebutt actually presage rookie excellence? I'm not talking about team type or agent nonsense. Does actual buzz in camps translate to in-season elite play? I don't really chart this. I just know that sometimes we hear, I remember when Brandon Cooks was a rookie in 2013. The Saints were down the road from me at the Greenbrier. Oh, Brandon Cooks. I went to practice like, Brandon Cooks, man, he can run, he can jump, he can catch. He ended up being pretty good. I think sometimes when you drop that player who was great in college among the best of the best that pro football has to offer, he stands out right away in training camp. You still don't know what's going to happen until it's time to go play, especially quarterback. Quarterback looks great in camp. Yeah, he's wearing a red jersey. Doesn't have to worry about getting hit. Doesn't have to worry about the defense studying his tendencies and game planning to try to stop him. There's a lot of buzz about Jaden Daniels. We're at the scouting combine. Every defensive player from the SEC, who's the toughest guy you faced last year? Jaden Daniels. There's some thought that maybe he's going to be great. We'll find out. That's why, and that's the ultimate reason that the draft is a crapshoot. For all the money, for all the time, for all the effort spent, they can't figure out how success at the college level projects. There's a ceiling over every guy from what he did in college to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Where's that ceiling? Is there no ceiling? You don't find out until it's time to go play in the NFL. All right, it's time for me to go. If I didn't get to your question today, ask it on Friday. I'll try to leave even more time on Friday. I don't have anything in the afternoon that would make me shut up. So once I start going on Friday, who knows how long I'll keep talking. Today, I basically tied one hand behind my back by starting at a time where I knew I had to shut up. So shut up I shall. Be safe on the 4th. Be careful with the fireworks. There is no firework. There is no ooh and ah that is better than having all your fingers. There is no ooh and ah that is better than not having third-degree burns or worse. Be smart. Be careful. Be safe. Be back here on Friday. Everybody have a great and happy 4th, and we'll talk to you real soon. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.